So not many people know this about me, but I have an Uncle Sam, not that Uncle Sam, but Sam Franklin. And less people know this about him, but he was inducted into the Jewish Hall of Fame for athletes. Why? Because he was able to make the Olympic team, the Olympic swim team for the 1980 Olympics. The problem, however, was that it was the 1980 Olympics. And that was the year the US decided that they weren't going to go. And I believe with the 2018 Winter Olympics on the cusp of the new year, and all the controversial talk surrounding both its location and the event in general, I believe is the perfect time to talk about why politics should be left completely in its entirety out of the Olympics as a whole. To start, let's return to the year of the 1980 Olympics. 1980. With the Russian invasion of Afghanistan fresh in mind, President Jimmy Carter went on to make the very polarizing decision to boycott the Olympics. And according to the state government, or state.gov, the pretty much official archive of American affairs, the U.S. boycott was followed by the withdrawal of up to 65 other countries, which is pretty impressive when you think about it, when you're trying to start a movement like that, until you realize that Afghanistan was none of them. It, in fact, went on to send 11 athletes on to compete in Moscow, the Russian capital, that the Olympics were being held in that year. So, to take a step back from my argument in this talk as a whole, what does it say about your movement and your political movement if the inspiration for this movement didn't believe in what you were doing? It didn't hurt. It didn't reprimand Russia, who continued their invasion. I believe until a year later. It wasn't until then that they moved out. And all it did was hurt the athletes that were meant to compete that year. My Uncle Sam, I got to speak to him about this while I was preparing my speech, told me it felt like the athletes, were being used for politics. It wasn't right. Athletes are not politicians. And he's right. The games were not conceived as a competition between countries. The athlete's victory does not prove whether a country is superior to another. The all-inclusiveness of the games was meant to bring with it a universal symbol of solidarity, to celebrate and acknowledge those of sport and sweat that came from all walks of life. To impose otherworldly politics and agendas upon the spectacle does nothing but invalidate the hard work that these athletes did over the course of these 4 years and their entire lives. My uncle had taken a year off of college post-graduation to train specifically for this event. And when Carter had announced the boycott, it had, in his own words, screwed up my motivation, and on top of that, had put many athletes in a situation that, to this day, they are still dealing with, trying to come to terms with. Just imagine that. They were at the tip-top shape of their lives, and then they had the rug pulled out from under them. And it wasn't right. It solved nothing, and it only hurt the people who were meant to go to those games. And as expected, with more politics comes more controversy. As the influence of both politics and media went on to incite one of the most criticized changes in Olympic history. The Olympics were meant to play center stage to amateurs, and were meant to play center stage to amateurs who had trained specifically for this event. To find out that you were endorsed by a company or the government in general was basically the death knell to your Olympic career. Until 1992, when the committee was influenced by the U.S. to allow professional athletes to play. QZ states in their article, "What Changed the Olympics Forever." The one firm rule that always governed the Olympic Games was that amateur athletes were permitted to compete, professional athletes were not. That's what made the Olympics, until it didn't. While this wasn't as hard a blow to the athletes in general as my previous example, it was still it was a much larger change and much more long-standing, and closed the door to many athletes who were then replaced with professionals. And not even to this day is the sanctity of the Olympics being defended or upheld, because, as said by of those who don't learn from our history, the upcoming Winter Games is being boycotted again by multiple countries who have a problem with the current location of the upcoming event, which is, sorry if I mispronounce this, Pyongyang, South Korea, which is only 50 miles away from the North Korean border, which is the cause of the tension. Bob Green of CNN, Bob Green of CNN states, now, the tension over North Korea has prompted a country scheduled to participate in the 2018 Winter Olympics to openly state it will skip the games if security cannot be guaranteed. And while even in this new context, keeping the safety of our athletes and whoever you send to this country, it is new, and it isn't in response to a gross violation of another country's rights. It's still a move caused specifically and entirely by political influence, which is not what the Olympics was meant for. To end it as we began, I'd like to quote my Uncle Sam one more time, saying, "There are certain worldwide competitions, such as the Olympics, that were meant to be a way to gather people together in peaceful competition, and once politics becomes a part of it, it turns into something completely different." These athletes aren't politicians, as I said earlier. They work their entire lives, or if not, incredibly hard these 4 years to compete in a sport that they are so passionate about. To include politics in this and use them as martyrs that they never signed up to be, it's just a gross violation of their hard work. And so don't use an event like this to push your own political agenda, and keep politics out of the Olympics. Thank you.
Daniel, that was the speech you were going to review. Sorry. So I'll just make the comments, and we'll make it as quick as possible. I like the Uncle Sam joke story at the beginning. I thought that worked pretty well. You've got a pretty clear statement of what your purpose is. That's fine. I do think that you need a little bit stronger supporting structure. At one point it feels like you're just fighting an event that happened almost 40 years ago and making a value judgment about that, which I can appreciate, but I'm not sure that this audience is going to feel all that compelled to deal with it. I think as an example of politics getting involved in the Olympic movement, it's a good illustration, but I think you need some of the more contemporary information to apply there. The decision about allowing professionals to participate, for instance, I'm not sure how that fits into the category of this being a political process. That needs to be developed a little bit more. the example of what's going on in South Korea with the upcoming Olympics, that doesn't sound to me like it's particularly political. That's just a security issue. Now, if security is a political issue, then we're going to run into bigger problems for your developing this argument. The fact that people are a little reticent about going someplace where there's potential belligerence about to explode, I can see why they'd be concerned about that. But that's, to me, that's like common sense. If you, it's like one of the reasons that they're probably not going to be hosting the Olympics in Lebanon or Jerusalem anytime soon is because there's always the potential of violence in a situation like that. So you want to go someplace where there's not. I'm not sure why they picked this South Korean city, when they did, and I'm not sure that that was a political decision. You needed to explain, if it is a political decision, what was going on there. So I just didn't feel like some of the points fit the argument that you're making. You need to be under a little bit more control in the presentation also. Dang it, I didn't write down the time. Okay, well.
It was on time.
Yeah, it's okay.
It was 8:00 something.
8:00 something? 8:00 something. All right. All right, we got to stop there because